to Beyond the Struggle. I am Jeff Monroe. I'm joined today with my boss and host, Jason Blackledge. All right, thanks for coming along, man, and joining us today. This is the first part of two. So, welcome, man.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Your boss.
Yeah.
About time, man. Yes, sir. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I know it's one of those days,
It
man.
is, man.
You said life be lifing today. I know, man, and you kind of you get to doing these, and it's like, okay, sometimes you're trying to find topics, and sometimes we sit in here and we have these great talks and discussions, and then sometimes it's like, man, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
What are we gonna get in here and do, man? And I think you just kind of, yeah, I kind of told you what I kind of want to talk about, and then you said something a while ago about insurance and mortgage insurance, and like, what are you gonna do? You gotta have them, but it's like at the same time, I was just thinking about that, and it kind of goes into what I want to talk about. You know, the fact that you have those things today
Yeah.
is what matters the most, right? Is makes a big difference. So like, okay, yeah, maybe you didn't have a mortgage to worry about before. Maybe you didn't have even insurance to worry about it going up on you. You know what I mean? But you didn't have those things,
No.
before. And it's like to find the gratitude in those things is what we have to look at the most, I was just listening to you. We've talked about this before. We look at all these life happenings and we like to bitch about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's bitching about like these are the smaller things in our life compared to the other things that we've gone through in our life.
Yeah, it's first world problems
It is
now,
first world
I
problems.
remember listening to a morning show years ago, and they used to have a once a week segment
Yeah.
on it where it was
First
just
world problems.
that's what it was called, yeah. And they and I just remember one that the guy was like, he couldn't find a television stand big enough for his, like, they
Yeah.
would read out these people that would
Right.
call in or send in emails, and one of them was like, I can't find a TV console big enough for my
Yeah.
80-inch TV to sit on, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and so
It really is, man. Like compared to, the problems that we used to have. And, for me, like problems that I used to have was wondering if I'm gonna have a bed to sleep on, if I'm gonna have food to put in my body, you know, um, am I gonna be sleeping under that nice bridge in Austin, Texas?
you
Right?
said food in your body. I've been eating nothing but fruit.
Yeah.
I feel that's probably why I feel miserable, man.
I,
It's been 3 days,
yeah.
and
I told you you gotta snack on the fruits.
like
You still gotta fill your body with like proteins and stuff.
I'm gonna say that's my wife's idea, though. So, but man, no, you were sitting here talking about it. Like I came in, a little
Yeah.
context, I guess, was I came in talking about, man, my health insurance just doubled, and
Yeah.
and my homeowner's insurance has gone up, and this and that, and I do believe that at times it can be difficult to maintain that gratitude.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then sometimes like people, I'm talking and Jeff says, what you said,
Mhm.
and like, yeah, but like a couple years ago, you didn't even have a place to live. And my
Right.
first thought is like, this asshole, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
right.
like,
Yeah. Like you didn't expect me to do it right here, huh? You're
yeah,
like,
man,
oh,
come on, man.
man.
But no, I
Now
mean,
I
look,
gotta put on face, you know?
but there's truth to it. I know at times, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Like the more life, or how about this? The further I get away from my last drink, um,
The more life happens.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and it's like and it is my problems change.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the problems that I do have, and it is things like that. Insurance going up versus what I get paid at work, or what the fiance, excuse me, girlfriend, my roommate, my long term roommate now.
I'm gonna spit my drink on you, man.
What she wants to spend, and I'm thinking about these things in my life, but the fact of the matter is that I've been put in a position in my life to be able to manage life,
Mhm.
right? Where at one time I couldn't manage anything, much less my life or anything that was going around it, right? Because I was trying to still manage my drinking, my drug use, all those things. So, when life hit me, what I did, I ran back to drugs and alcohol, or I never ran away from them,
Yeah.
but that was like the solution. But now today, I've been given this. What does it say in the book? I'm drawing a blank. About having the oh gosh damn it, Jason, I'm just having one of those
That's what
moments,
happens when you're old, man. That's
yeah.
what happens. You know,
I
like
think so.
that's what happens.
I think that's a big portion of it too, um but just having the ability to be able to um have things come at me and to be able to manage those things in a specific priority manner, right? And know that no matter how much comes at me, I'm still going to be able to handle it. Um, as long as I'm trusting in my higher power and trusting in God, that these things and the outcomes are going to happen exactly the way they're supposed to happen. So I try not like that's something I try to like, discuss with you when we meet and stuff on Sundays. Like when we get so caught up in the life happenings and the things that we think are supposed to go the way we want them to go, I really don't have a choice in that a lot of times. I think that um, as long as I am trusting God, that the outcome is going to be exactly the way God wants it to
Mhm.
be. So when I put myself in that position to look at life like that, I don't get so overwhelmed and so stressed. Like I have a marriage coming up next year that is completely crazy to me because my whole life has been completely against trying to have any type of emotional um tie downs or even feelings towards someone that could lead me into that position,
Mhm.
and now I got, like you said, these whole other set of fears and whole other set of um whole other set of things in my life that take on a whole new meaning. So I could let the, I guess, the troubles of tomorrow kind of rule my thoughts, like how I'm going to pay for this, how I'm going to do this, why isn't somebody helping this, and all these things when I know deep down through my experiences in the past 11 years that things have happened the way they were supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I just had to kind of get out of the way and stop trying to do all these things in my life that um, that experience has shown that I can completely destroy when I interject myself into
Yeah.
them. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you this then. So, I guess before we completely move away from the topic at hand, the gratitude topic, what do you do? What are some things that you do when you find yourself struggling with gratitude, I guess?
Well, it's easy for us to do. It really is. Like you said, the further we get, the harder it is to see the gratitude in things sometimes. I have, I would say a a daily activity of prayer and
Mhm.
meditation, but it's not always
Yeah.
daily. You know what I mean? For the most part, it's 5 to 6 days a week,
Mhm.
right? Where I get up and I ask God to direct my thoughts, my actions, and my words. And when I wake up that way, I'm usually find myself to be able to handle what comes at me throughout the day, and that puts me in a place of presence. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? And I'm able to see kind of the life that I'm kind of living in that moment, right? It's when the gratitude slips away is kind of in the evenings for me. You know what I mean? It
After your
really does.
nap.
Well, after my nap,
Yeah.
but it's like you start thinking about some of the stuff that's happened, right? And you start thinking about people, and then everything just kind of like blends together,
Yeah.
and that's where these resentments can start
Mhm.
building, and then you forget about the little gratitude portions of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like that's how that's how gratitude slips away because resentment covers over
Yeah.
it. Resentment, the fear, the future trip, and all of those things kind of erase gratitude. It does, right? Like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, I was gonna let you
Um,
keep going. You know,
and like so when I'm able to um did something happen with the
the
camera?
power went out, man.
Uh-oh. Are we good, Ken? Are we good? Okay. He says keep going, so we're gonna keep going. Look, at wedding rings,
Yeah,
right?
man. Look,
But no, man,
you got a PowerPoint.
I do when I'm able to notice those things, and that's when we're talking about that nightly review. I thank God for the things that I have. And I also ask him, like, hey, allow me to be aware of these things that I do have. And look, I call people, I
Hmm.
talk to people, and like they'll point out shit like that I just told you. Like, think about what you have and think about what you didn't have.
Yeah.
Look, and like my sponsor, and he'll be like, dude, think about last month. Think about a year or so ago when you were complaining about such and such, and look where you're at in life right
Yeah.
now, or look where you're at in this relationship right now. You know, I think before I got sober, I was thinking we were talking about this. Like, man, there was zero gratitude in anything I had in my life. If you weren't giving me something, if my dad didn't give me what I thought I needed, if the world didn't provide me what I thought I deserved,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And then, of course, I'd go even further. I'd blame God on the fact that I didn't have these things in my life. Why who did I screw over in a past life,
Yeah.
right? Like I would go everywhere else but to inwards. You know what I'm saying? I'd look at everything else and everybody else for what I didn't have or what I'm not getting except inwardly.
Mm.
And that's some of the things that we learn when we get in this is like, hey, um, everything is a direct result of the consequences of my actions, right? And I still have to look at that.
Yeah.
I still have to look at that. What I do have and what I don't have is still a direct result of either my actions or lack of actions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What about you? I mean, I know like when you first started, you said you used to, you used to be part of a group where y'all used to do these gratitude text messages and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I think that's another thing to look at is like, what did I do that I don't do? I have to look at that a lot of times too.
I man, I tell you what's probably my biggest one is like, cause I have an unbelievable talent. That's what we're gonna call it.
Okay. For
Of
what?
like still, like the stinking thinking still, like years and years into it. And so I think for me, like I was sitting there, I have to talk to people. I
Yeah.
have to. Because even like you talked about like some of these like internal coping mechanisms like prayer, meditation,
Hmm.
and self inventory. But man, like I can get away from that like real fast.
Yeah. It's
Like,
easy.
and it's I don't even want to do that, this and that.
Hmm.
And I really have to be pretty vigilant about talking with people about this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and then I guess another thing that I do probably better today than I did in the past was like take I don't know if the word's criticism, take suggestions maybe, listen and take some suggestions. How about that? You know,
Constructive
yeah,
criticism.
and maybe it's not
Yeah.
even always that, it's
Right.
like, cause like, with you saying what you said a few minutes ago, it's like,
Yeah.
that wasn't so much like criticism. It's just
Hmm.
kind of like pointing something out to me that just wasn't even
Yeah.
a thought for
Yeah.
me. You know what I mean? And it's like, I guess those are the two things that I'm pretty heavy
Oh,
on.
I think yeah, for certain that is something that you're better at looking at as opposed to previously, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean like recovery previously. I'm not who knows what the hell you were like. An active addict. I do know what you were like when you were coming into treatment and like very unreceptive to those that criticism,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I think that goes along with your relationship with your higher power and like, trying to change your own self image and, I guess, I think accept who you are as well as a person and who you are or try to be spiritually, like I do too, man. Like, the thing is, like, I'm never going to change if I don't accept the change within myself
Hmm.
too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that goes along with the gratitude portion of my life and my relationship with God and how much I want to grow in that area,
Yeah.
right? So if I am not grateful for those things and what God has provided me, um, and I think Jeff is doing it all by himself, then I'm right back to where I started. My whole deal is like, um, how do I continuously grow as a person that one people want to be around, people enjoy being around. Like I hadn't always been that person. Like I told you, about that, but not too long ago. Like it really struck me when somebody had mentioned, hey, I really didn't too much care for
Yeah.
you, and like that was the perception of a lot of people early on in my recovery. Like I may have been working a program, but I wasn't working the program.
Yeah.
And when I say that, like, it wasn't doing those things like we're just been talking about of like um listening to others when they say something that giving me like constructive criticism and taking that to heart and reviewing that and seeing how I could be better the next day or be better to that person or be useful to that person. Right. It was all about still that stinking thinking and
Yeah.
um these levels of selfishness that you got to chip away at, and the only way I can chip away at that is um the growing portion and learning about myself and being okay with who I am and the skin that I'm in, because that takes a while too.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I think we see a lot of that, like those that come into treatment, like that portion of it, and I can look at somebody, a couple of years down the road, been sober, come through treatment, and they're a completely different, person, and like because they're either one, and I say this completely different person on two ways, either they haven't taken the steps for an additional change and spiritual growth, or they have, and you see a completely different person.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you see people backpedal, and like before they even went into treatment, they may be sober, but they're miserable as,
Yeah,
you know.
you can run into that, or I shouldn't say that. Like I've been to 12-step meetings
Mhm.
before where you see people and it's like, man, like
Yeah.
maybe just need a drink, like
Yeah.
like
Right. And
and
then,
we were talking about that before though, like the
mhm.
whole, it's like, man, crazy how, talking for a few minutes before we got here, I'm sorry, before we started,
Mhm.
was that spiritual, you know, experience awakening,
Yeah.
that change that you're kind of describing.
Yeah.
Um
Shit, some of them don't have it.
no, and you're right, man, but it's like, one of the things I always, what I read was like it was what does it say? Complete emotional arrangement and rearrangement and displacement, something
Mhm.
like that. Things that were important then aren't important now,
Yeah.
and vice versa, and to think but sometimes, like I said, man, I just need that stuff
Yeah.
pointed out to me. As you were talking a few minutes ago, and about the person I was, I was kind of thinking in my mind, like, thank
Mhm.
goodness I've got a boss that
Yeah.
points out to me that, what an asshole I was.
Right.
Like she makes sure to. I think she's just doing her best to keep me
Yeah.
grounded, Jeff. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But
Sometimes you have to hear those
yeah,
things. Sometimes the things we don't want to hear is the things we need to hear the most.
yeah,
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that all comes with that entitlement, the selfishness of thinking that, one, either you know everything or nobody knows anything at
yeah,
all. You know what I mean? Um, Man, it never ceases to fail. Like we can get in these moods of like, hey, what are we going to do today? Like, we try to put it off, and then we get on here, and it's like, I start to feel better about what we do and what we talk about because it puts me back into a place of, unselfishness and the fact that I think one of the reasons we do this, and I think God had given us an opportunity, and God works through people, and
Mhm.
and say, hey, Randy, and the rest of them are like, man, y'all do great on this, and to know like that people are actually watching and like get something out of it.
Yeah.
Both you and I have had experiences with this podcast and people, kind of saying something, to us on the outside. I went to Abbeville and man, they were all over it,
You were a
dude.
star, man.
And it's like, man, that's great that like, um, there's been a couple of times when people have said, watching this podcast and watch y'all talk about treatment, and seeing the fact that I know y'all,
Mhm.
right? And you're still talking about personal growth, and you're still talking about this lifestyle, and knowing that you're still there lets me know that Woodlake was still there, that treatment was
Yeah.
still there for me to come back to. The rooms of AA and the rooms of, Celebrate Recovery, whatever, 12-step programs are available for you to come back to. You just got to take the action, take the steps to do that. I'll pick up the phone, wherever the case may be. But, we had that girl we were talking about, that came to us, and man, it's a miracle. It is a miracle that she's there, right?
I
What I
I
mean,
don't know. I don't know the individual. I believe that
right?
some of y'all know her.
We do,
Um,
and she told me, and I think she might have said the
she
same
told
thing to
me
you.
exactly.
And she said, "Look, I was sitting there and going through like this worst part of my life, and here I am in the hospital, like, she may lose a leg or something like
Mhm.
she can't stay sober, to save her life, and she's in the hospital, and she's on her phone, TikTok, and she scrolls, and up pops me
Yeah.
and you, and I've known her because she's been through a couple of times, treated her and stuff like that, and she's like, yeah, I saw this, and I knew immediately that this is what I needed to do. I need to go back to
Yeah.
Woodlake. I need to go to treatment because she couldn't stop on her own.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit to me, like that really, gets it makes me like, hey, I may not want to come and do something one day or this and that, but like I think at the end of the day, it's helping somebody, even if it's one person.
Yeah.
Just like what we do in our um in our program, and that we work, and the things that we do, we don't do it for ourselves, we do it for others, and we do it to try to help others have this life that we get to live,
Mhm.
that we probably don't deserve, but we get to live it.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this part one of a two-part episode of Beyond the Struggle. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, share. Join us again next week. Jeff and I will be here with you guys again.
You'll be on time this time.
I'll be on time,
Mhm.
and maybe Jeff will let me talk a little bit.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.